Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Honor. I am the better half of this talkative duo. My name is Jeff. Alongside me, as always, Shane Zanman Sabunya, and we are coming to you live on Spreaker, on lordsofpainradio.net, and also on YouTube. If you are listening to us on YouTube, go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, because we do this thing live twice a week. We do it every Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time for Kingdom of Honor. We do it every Wednesday night after AEW's Dynamite on TNT for Dynamite After Dark. And next week, we are actually going to do a live exclusive show where we cover The Mandalorian. But that's next week. This week, we are talking about a whole ton of stuff. We've got an early, much too early Wrestler of the Year pick. We also have our matches of the year so far, 5 weeks into the year. And Bully Ray, as great a heel as he has been throughout his career and as brilliant of a wrestling mind he is, said something that both Shane and I feel is stupid. And NJPW, they had a thing, Shane. They had a really, really good thing. Brought us a match of the year and brought us arguably the best wrestler of the last 4 years in there against some sort of succubus that he has zero chemistry with. How's it going, Shane? What'd you think of that?
Yeah, that was an interesting intro there, Jeff. Since we were last on the air, I've watched Ring of Honor's ninth anniversary, or I think it was ninth anniversary show.
Oh yeah,
the entire fourth season of Billions, the latest NXT, New Beginning in Sapporo, and I watched all of this while Jeff was looking up the mating habits of a fruit bat. So
it was interesting. There's documentaries and all kinds of stuff.
You
would be amazed at the greatness you can learn about a fruit bat's mating rituals.
I would be very surprised.
So you had thoughts on that main event? I didn't watch it. Luckily, I saved myself agony because after the tag match, seeing Okada and Ishika Jr., I had no desire to watch those two.
Well, see, that surprises me because you're the one on this show that has been saying how much better Taichi has gotten, and how you look forward to his matches and you actually enjoy his character work in his matches. Here's the thing. Over the last 2.5 years, I would say, maybe 3, there has become, as great as Okada has been over the last 8 years, there's been this formula that his matches have fallen into. You know, the formula where at the end he can't hit a Rainmaker to win the thing. You know, he's got to hit a clothesline, do a wrist clutch, hit another clothesline. Recently, then he hits the tombstone. The opponent somehow counters the Rainmaker. He finally hits a jumping tombstone, and then he might hit 2 or 3 Rainmakers in a row and finally win the match. And then, he threw a new wrinkle in there about a year ago where now he's got the spinning Rainmaker, which is really just a spinning lariat. And all of that is starting to become kind of passé, in my opinion. Kind of de rigueur. It's just all run-of-the-mill. And it made sense that all this stuff would happen because he was in there against guys like Kenny Omega, and Naito, and Ibushi, and Sonata, and Minoru Suzuki, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. And then we came to yesterday's match. And Taichi...
2 days ago, Saturday.
No, it was yesterday.
That you watched it. Today is Tuesday, dude.
It is Tuesday. You're right. Yeah, so Sunday's match. I'm used to us being on Mondays, so we changed that. But then we come to Sunday's match. This weekend's match against Taichi, and Taichi, like you say, has been improving over the last couple of years. He's still not great. He's not somebody that I'm going to look forward to his matches. He's not somebody whose matches I typically enjoy. But yeah, he's been getting better. But we're talking about a guy who has had two never openweight title reigns where he defended the title once each and lost. We're talking about a guy who has just recently rose up from the cruiserweights or the junior heavyweights about two or 3 years ago. We're talking about a guy who he's basically like a cross between, like you said, Iska Jr. and maybe Suzuki Jr., where it's just, cheating all the time. He's still Bizarro Tanahashi to me, and I still can barely stand the guy. But regardless of my personal opinions on him, to see a guy at that level and Okada, regardless of the fact that Okada was quote unquote hurt or not, but to see Taichi being able to survive everything that Naito did, or Ibushi did, or Tanahashi did, or Omega did, or Sonata did, it's just like, why? How? How is this guy that's barely risen above the mediocre level in New Japan holding his own for half an hour, 35 minutes against the greatest IWGP Heavyweight Champion of all time by almost any measure? And I'm looking at this going, okay, Okada is one of the best wrestlers in the world. He's been arguably the best wrestler on the planet for the last 8 years. But even he can't make me buy this upstart of Taichi coming up. I'm sure Taichi's fans enjoyed the hell out of it, but to me, it's completely unbelievable. There was a match that Jeff and I saw about 2 weeks ago that other people had praised as being a great match, and we both thought it was a complete dud. I'm not going to say this one was a complete dud. It still had its moments in it, but the way that everything progressed in the match, it was such a distaste in my mouth that I just couldn't believe it. I mean, Taichi being able to survive, to counter 3 or 4 Rainmakers, and it to take 2 lariats and a jumping tombstone, the spinning lariat, and finally an actual Rainmaker to polish off goddamn Taichi. No, just no.
Well, this is one of the dangers you and I have talked about before. And like you, I watched just an unbelievable amount of wrestling. And one of them, the Ring of Honor 9th anniversary show, we're going to discuss. That's going to be exclusive for our Patreon members. So that'll hopefully be up tonight, patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. I'll give you more details on that later. But, I watched a lot of the New Beginning shows, kind of cherry picked the ones I could. I had my kid all weekend, so I couldn't watch, 8 hours of wrestling. And, I did watch the tag match with Iska Jr. and Suzuki against Mox and Okada. And the one thing that I noticed from that match was that there just wasn't any chemistry at all between Okada and Taichi. They just didn't seem like they meshed at all. They didn't seem like they had good timing. They didn't seem like they were really on the same page, and it just got me zero interest in watching that match. I'm glad that I missed it, because I would have been screaming at the top of my lungs, because one thing that we've warned about for years and years, and now that Okada has been on that level for 6, 7, 8 years and had the battles he had, the only way for a guy like Taichi to appear to be a threat to him is to kick out of finishers, reverse finishers, because that's what all the great opponents that Okada has does. The problem is with Taichi, he is not that character. They should have, maybe storytelling wise, maybe he should have stayed away from the Rainmaker, maybe used that only one time to end the match. Or how about this? Go back to your Heavy Rain finisher, which is a much more devastating looking finisher, and get rid of the Rainmaker altogether, because clearly if a guy like Taichi can counter it and kick out of it, it's just not doing it anymore.
Right. I mean, this is a situation where I felt like exactly like you just said. Like, this should have been a match where Taichi, he's valiantly, well, not valiantly because he's goddamn Taichi, but that he's fighting, he's pulling out every dirty trick in the book to try to win, and then he gets hit with the tombstone, the one Rainmaker, and that's it. Maybe he counters one Rainmaker or something, but not
counters, not kicks out.
Right. Well, he didn't kick out of a Rainmaker. He kicked out of the short arm lariats that aren't the ripcord version of them. Okay. But it shouldn't have taken everything in Okada's arsenal to beat Taichi. Is the point? Not only does that lessen Okada, but it also lessens every other person Okada's faced for that championship over the last 2 years, and it lessens the championship really. It lessens the matches that he's been in because now if Taichi's going to have that same match against him, it's really sad because Okada, to me, used to be a fantastic professional wrestler, and I'm not saying he's not anymore. But he's gotten into this routine where it's almost like he's on autopilot. And
Well,
when we were growing up, Jeff, we would watch Ric Flair have his formula, we watched Hulk Hogan have his formula, and we knew how every single Hulk Hogan match was going to go, right? I mean, he would get beaten down, he would kick out of the guy's finisher, or he would like power out of a submission hold, whatever was happening. He would shake off the punches, he would wag his finger, he would hit the big boot, he'd hit the body slam, leg drop, 1, 2, 3. And now I feel like almost every Okada match ends exactly the same way.
There's differences, though. The biggest difference is that Hogan, Flair, Savage, or Ultimate Warrior, they never used that formula against lower mid-carders.
Exactly.
Which is what Okada did. And also, I've been preaching about this now for... You and I started doing this show, in 14, 15, end of 14 or start of 15?
Our old
so
show,
for
yeah.
now, yeah, and then, we took a little hiatus, but essentially for 5 years, I've been preaching the same thing. This is the danger of the finisher kickout. Everybody needs to... When one guy does it, the next guy either needs to do it twice or they need to do it too so that they show that they're on the same level that the previous guy was. And with Okada, this has now been happening to him for 5-6 years, where you get people like Omega, you get people like Tanahashi and White and Sonata who are able to kick out of this. Well, now for Taichi to actually look like he's competitive on Okada's level, he's got to do it too. He's got to counter these. He's got to kick out of moves that would normally put away a guy of his status, just put him away completely. And that's the danger of the finisher kickout, is it keeps escalating. And now you've got lower mid-carders who are having to resort to the same kind of treatment that a Naito and a White get, just so they look like they belong in the match.
And that has the exact same danger of the 50-50 booking that we hate so much, where if everybody's 50 and 50, if everybody's 500, then everybody's on the same level. And if even a guy like Taichi at that lower mid-card level can survive all the stuff that we're supposed to be amazed that Naito and Ibushi survive, and Tanahashi survives, and White survives, then everybody's at that same level. And
right.
That just should
exactly.
not be the case.
And that's exactly
another guy we didn't mention in that same class is Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, he's had those fantastic 2 title matches against Okada and survived that same stuff. And I'm supposed to believe that that Taichi and ZSJ are on the same level? No.
I can't stand that. I don't know why that bugs me. But every time I hear ZSJ, it just drives me insane. But that does bring me to another guy who we are going to spend probably a great deal of this show talking about, because he went the opposite way. When he declared himself for the heavyweight, and the G1 and wrestled that grueling G1 tournament, he got his ass kicked almost every single match. And that's Will Ospreay. He didn't transition his junior heavyweight into that heavyweight role and just destroy everybody, because he's not a heavyweight yet. He wasn't able to translate that into, and by doing the way that he handled that G1, made his year actually more spectacular, because he was not this unstoppable force, was still able to put on 5-star matches while getting his ass kicked. So he's able to he's able to do what I think Ishka, it's just ever since he's taken out that iron glove, that's all he is to me is Ishka Jr. But Taichi was not able to translate that kind of feeling. I'm not saying that he should have gotten his ass just handed to him, but he never should have put up a 25-minute fight the way that he did.
No, and if he did, it should have been where he Okada from behind, he jumped Okada to start the match, but it should have been to start the match, and then Okada away to either hit him with the Rainmaker or beat him with a roll up, and that could set up something for down the road where maybe Taichi is building himself up, and we can finally believe that a match could happen. It's just way too early for us to be able to for me to believe this stuff. And the announcers did a great job of trying to sell it. Like Okada was attacked the night before. He may not even be able to wrestle. And Taichi's been waiting for this match for 9 years now, ever since he beat Okada. And when they were both young lions, and they both went off, and he came back, and Okada, challenged Tanahashi out of the blue, and has been the Rainmaker ever since. And all of that makes a lot of sense. That that Taichi would be motivated, and Okada was down because of the night before and being jumped from behind. But the problem is, the two guys didn't sell that. The announcers did, no. But Taichi didn't wrestle any different than he normally does. And Okada sold the neck occasionally, but it wasn't like he was writhing on the floor holding his neck and back the entire match like he should have been if he was after the attack that happened the night before. And it's just, I would have much preferred if Taichi had lost by roll up or won through devious means rather than surviving all that he survived in my opinion, unbelievable fashion.
Yeah, and that would have made more sense. From a storytelling point, that would have made more sense. And that's kind of what I was trying to Ospreay reference, that I did the way he did. But he's gone out and he's had some pretty good matches against heavyweights with his match and things like that. And now he's positioned after that year of learning. Now he's in a position where if he goes out in this G1 and puts on a performance that could maybe make him possibly one or go very far into it, he's now in a position that's believable because a guy like Ospreay getting his butt kicked the way he did, he was able to learn from that and be better off for it. Where Taichi, there's just nothing. There's nothing.
And it did show, and it did agree that, we already pretty much had halfway through the year Ospreay pegged as being the front runner for Wrestler of the Year. He'd had the great matches at Wrestle Kingdom and the New Japan Cup. He had that great match against Jeff Cobb at Supercard, G1 Supercard. Then he had the great run through the best of the Super Juniors. But it really was his matches in the G1 showing that variety that he could wrestle and still pull off that endorsed further his resume to be the Wrestler of the Year.
Right.
And now, like you said, I don't expect that he's going to go in the G1 this year again. He is going to go into the G1 again this year. What I don't expect he's going to go in the G1 and completely dominate. This year, I think he had 3 wins in it. Next year, he'll probably 5. Or I'm sorry, the coming year, he'll probably have 5. It's not like he's going to go from 2 wins in the G1 to being in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom next year. They'll bring him along slowly, and he's going to improve his record as a heavyweight. Maybe he'll get the Never title again. Something like that. It's not going to be where all of a sudden he's challenging the top guys and almost beating them.
I don't believe he'll win the G1, but I could definitely see him in the finals and having it be believable. Where if he had been in the finals last year, even with the amazing run he was having, for him to win heavyweight and go to the finals of the G1, that would have done more to hurt him than anything. What he did was he went out there and he put on gutsy performances and took his ass kicking like a man and learned from it. So now for him to go out there and take what he learned last year and maybe make it to the finals or, maybe be tied for the leader at the end of the block, whatever, that would make sense. And I would be okay with it because that would be something that he would have deserved.
Right. I mean, he might even get the kind of look this year that ZSJ did. I'm sorry, ZSJ did a couple of years ago, where
Asshole.
where he won the New Japan Cup and then he tied for the top spot in the G1.
Or even a run like Sanada's had the last few years.
Right. Right.
Where he's had very impressive
maybe
runs.
Ospreay will get in the finals of the G1, sorry, the New Japan Cup, and then be, up there amongst the leaders in the G1, something like that. It's going to be a slow build, but I do think eventually he'll be in that top 4-5 spot.
But he's also not walking into against the face of the franchise and putting on a showing like should be reserved for people much, much higher on the card than him, like Taichi did. And that brings us to ZSJ and Ospreay who put on probably, I would say, my number 3 match of the year so far. I think I've only got 2 matches that are ahead of it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this afternoon too, and I think that's where I landed too. Is that it's my 3rd favorite match of the year.
It was phenomenal. That is, and we can kind of tie in our wrestler of the year too, because Shane and I had a pretty decent discussion about this earlier. Is he was like, well, who would your top 5 be? And honestly, it's too early to have a top 5. But if I were to put anybody in a top 5, and definitely at my number 1 spot, and definitely my wrestler of the month, it's Ospreay. Will has had 2. We're 5 weeks in. He's had 2 5+ star matches.
Exactly.
Which is there's nobody on his level. There's nobody. And I mean, granted, he's been in there against 2 amazing wrestlers who deserve credit too. And ZSJ had, a 5 and a 4-star match. We've had Takahashi, who's just been on fire since he's been back. So, and a 5+ star match against Takahashi. It's not like he's been in there against schleps and elevated them, but he's been in there against people that he's been able to work 2 different style matches now and give us 2 5+ star matches.
And 2 matches where we felt emotionally connected the entire way through both of them too.
And not just to him, but to both wrestlers.
Right.
The stories, and that's credit on him. He's going in as the babyface. He's going in as the one that, everybody's rooting for. And we've been emotionally invested in both ZSJ and Takahashi at the same time. Takahashi. At the exact same time. We've been just as invested in them. So when ZSJ and Takahashi actually end up winning the matches, we're just as emotionally invested in those guys winning that match as we are as in the performance that Ospreay's doing. And Ospreay has looked damn good in defeat 2 straight times. And, I don't know that there's a better wrestler on the planet right now. I really don't think there is.
There's not.
As far as
there's not a better in-ring performer on the planet today than Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
I know that I am completely biased in what I'm about to say, but the only person that I see on the WWE roster right now that can compare is Shayna Baszler. And then, but then I look, in New Japan, you've got, Jay White, you've got Sanada, you've got Okada, you've got Naito, but I still think, and ZSJ, but I still think,
I hate you.
I still think Will Ospreay is far and away the top, top performer on the planet. And I know you're going to say Johnny Gargano, and I know but my issues with him, and and Tommaso Ciampa, I just need to see more of him being back before I put him back in that level. I just, I'm really looking forward to seeing him take on Adam Cole because I want to see, is Ciampa really still at that level he was before injury a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago?
I think what we've seen from him has proven it. I think he's improved on the mic greatly. And I just, this tweener role that he's doing, I like so much better than his straight badass heel role that he did. But then again, I've always been more drawn to the tweeners anyway, the anti-heroes and all that. And, we'll get to more of that in a little bit. But, there's also guys like Cody who had, he had a 5-star match against Darby Allin. He's been on fire on the mic ever since that match. Darby Allin had that 5-star match against Cody to start the year, and then he had a 4.5-star match against Pac. He had a great performance last week in that tag match against the Inner Circle. I think Phantasmo was the highlight of the junior tag match at Wrestle Kingdom, and every time I've seen him since, he's had unbelievable character performances. He's in my list too, as far as, I don't want to say top 5, but he's definitely in top 10 and making an argument if he continues the way he's going. His match against Gabriel Kidd, you can't take anything away from Gabriel Kidd, because Gabriel Kidd is, for people that don't know who Gabriel Kidd is, he spent a lot of time in Europe, a lot of time in Rev Pro and Defiant. When Defiant folded, he decided, instead of going to NXT or NXT UK or taking any kind of big contracts, he threw everything against the wall and said, you know what? I'm going to Japan. I'm going to go to the dojo and I'm going to start over from scratch. And during his match, they talked about what a guy like Kidd has to go through when entering the dojo. The dojo is for people who are learning to wrestle. They go in there as 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. They learn the basics. So when Gabriel Kidd, a guy who's, he's only 22 years old, 22, 23, when he goes in there and he has 7, 8 years of wrestling at a high level behind him, that literally gets thrown out the door. And he's down there on the mat learning how to take bumps again like he's a rookie. So for a guy of Gabriel Kidd's stature to throw everything against the wall like that and say, you know what, to hell with it, I'm going to go start over, that's a lot for his character.
Well, and for did that,
right? I know Juice Robinson did that too.
Yeah, I was going to say Juice Robinson did that too.
There's another guy that did that too. I can't remember his name, but it just says a lot about their character. And if Kidd comes out better than he was going in, he's somebody to look out for a long time in New Japan. But I felt like his match against Phantasmo on night 2, were they in Sapporo on night 2? Sapporo. They were in Osaka the night before, right?
No, they were both nights. Osaka's this coming.
They were
Sunday.
Okay. The second night in Sapporo, I actually felt like that match that Phantasmo and Kidd had was really, really well done. That was a good 3.5 to 4-star match in my book. I thought they both played their roles perfectly. I felt like Phantasmo got himself even more over as a heel than he's been before. And of course there were some fantastic lines that came out of that with the whole, would you join Bullet Club or Chaos? Come on, be honest. Would you rather hang with Fale? Oh, I love Fale. It was just some classic lines delivered by Gino and Kevin Kelly. I really enjoyed that match. I really did.
Yeah, it was good. But, I feel like you talk about Phantasmo as if he's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And no,
Will Ospreay
is. And when you put him in that class so often with so little to his resume this year. Granted, it's only the 5 weeks into the year, but it feels like to me like that song we were talking about when right before we came on the air, where if you keep bringing up Phantasmo or like you did with Marty Scurll last year when he's got so
Marty
little
Scurll was 2 years ago.
Then I'm just gonna like kind of like want to start puking every time you do that.
No, Marty Scurll was 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago. That wasn't last year. Last year, I think I was more in love with. You still had him in your top 10
last year, and he didn't do anything last year.
Did I? No, I didn't last year, because last year we didn't do it. We just kind of briefly threw out our top few wrestlers of the year. Ended up landing on Ospreay and Kelly. It's possible. I don't remember. I don't remember last week.
And to me, Marty Scurll, like he had that great match against Aldis. He had that great ladder match at G1 Supercard, but those were both in the first 4 months of the year, and then nothing else since then.
Well, and that's just what I'm saying, is right now it's really too hard to call. And if I'm going to go off best performances I've seen, Cody's in there just because of how great he's been on the mic, and you've got to throw MJF in there too. Same reason. MJF hasn't had. Has MJF even wrestled this year, other than his little roll up against Diamond Dallas Page? But he's
yeah.
been.
He won that. Wait, was that the end of last year? I was gonna say the
No,
diamond.
that
He won
was.
the diamond ring. Yeah, that was the end of the last year, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was last year.
Yeah,
But I
I think
mean, he's been
I can't remember him having a singles match yet this year, but maybe he has.
he's been on fire on the mic, just like Cody. Cody has that one match against Darby Allin that uh, was great, especially for a TV match. It was really great, And then you've got people like Omega, who's had fantastic matches, but they've all been in tag matches, so we haven't really gotten to see what he's capable of, or what where he's going this year, or how he's going to be in those matches, because all he's done tag matches, but he's been on fire in his tag matches. So it's 5 years in. It's really too hard to really say this. What a top 5 or top 10 would be. I mean, we kind of talked about it today.
5 years is a long time, dude.
5 weeks, Jesus, 5 weeks into the year. You've got we can both agree that Ospreay is the best wrestler on the planet right now. He's had 2 5+ star matches. Nobody's been on his level, and he's done them both in losing matches where, even though he's in there against top-notch performers, we felt just as great that Takahashi won it as Ospreay's performance. And same thing with ZSJ. ZSJ had that 4-star match at Wrestle Kingdom. He had this 5+ star match against Ospreay. Naito had that 5-star match against Jay White, and then a 4.5-star match the next night against Okada. Okada had that 5+ star match against Ibushi, and then that 4.5-star against Naito. Jay White had
wrong about that still.
About what?
Naito and Okada is the match of the year so far.
We've discussed this thousands of times, not in my book, and that's what makes it so
you're
great.
Still wrong about it.
That's wrestling subjective. I personally liked, if I had to pick my match of the year so far, it would have to be Ospreay versus Takahashi. Would be my number 1 right now, and nothing has changed it. Nothing has come to that level of emotion that I felt during that.
Before we get too far into the weeds on this, it is something we definitely want to talk about. But I also want to say that there was another match that happened this weekend that's also in my top 5 matches of the year so far. And in order to say that, I'm going to first list off what my top 5 is this year. So
see, I only had one from this weekend.
So number 1, I already said, was Naito versus Okada. Number 2 is Will Ospreay versus Hiromu Takahashi. Number 3 is Will Ospreay versus ZSJ. And number 4 is Eddie Edwards versus Michael Elgin from Hard to Kill. But
yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. That wasn't this weekend.
No,
it's 3 weeks ago, actually, wasn't it?
But my 5th favorite match of the year so far is Hiroki Goto defending the Never Openweight Championship against Shingo Takagi.
God, that was a great match.
Kicked ass.
That was a great match, and that's in my top 10. I don't know if it's in my top 5, but my top 5 is Takahashi Ospreay from Wrestle Kingdom. Then I had this all laid out earlier. I'm just going to not give them in any order, but it's White versus Naito from night 1, Okada Ibushi from night 1, the Ospreay match that we just saw against ZSJ, and then for me right now it's a toss-up if we're allowing tag teams in this because it's so close into the year, DIY and Mustache Mountain. If we're not, that Fatal 4-Way from when Devlin won the Cruiserweight belt would be my number 5.
Yeah, I had a hard time not putting that one in there too. But
it depends. I mean, if we're going tag teams, that DIY Mustache Mountain was a perfect damn match. That's easily a top 5.
What we've done in the past is we've done we've done our tag teams separately. So I thought we could talk about that in a couple of weeks to see.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going that Fatal 4-Way.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and some of the other
my top 10 too.
Some of the other ones too. some of the other ones too that aren't in that top five. I mean, that I absolutely loved the Cody versus Darby Allin match from the first episode of AEW this year. I loved that Shingo Goto match, which is hard for me to say because I've never loved a Goto match ever in my entire life. I loved that. Oh, geez, I just had it. The Eddie Edwards Michael Elgin match I thought was fantastic. There was another one from this tour. I don't know if it was this tour or if it was Wrestle Kingdom weekend that I absolutely loved too. But 3 of my top 5 are in that are from Wrestle Kingdom Night 1. That's why I hold that first night so much higher than I do night 2, is because 3 of my top 5 matches so far this year were on night 1.
Right.
And they were back to back. They were all back to back too, which was even more depressing and hard to watch.
See, and I would put White's 2 matches at Wrestle Kingdom and Ibushi versus Okada, right after my top 5, and then that Fatal 4-Way's in there too. And let's see, if I'm going to do top 10, so that'd be one more. So I'll throw the Women's Royal Rumble in there. If we're going to count that as a match, I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but
yeah, well, I mean, we'll figure it out.
But I love that Women's Royal Rumble. So
yeah, I mean, my singles matches right now, mainly all of them are coming from New Japan. It's every show they put on has had one. Shingo Goto, which was phenomenal. You had 2 Osprey matches. The only 2 Osprey matches, that's my 1 and 3. I absolutely loved Okada versus Kota. I thought that was just fantastic. Jay White versus Naito, I thought was the best of their little series. Even better than last year's little character performance that they had. I thought this one was better done in the ring. This seems seemingly is New Japan's year. AEW is putting on some fantastic stuff, but they've got a lot of work to do to catch up to what NJPW has done so far this year.
yeah, and really, I mean, honestly, they've got a big show coming up. I'm expecting. We already know we're going to get that emotional battle between MJF and Cody. It's not going to be a technical classic, but it's going to be a hell of a war. And and sometimes that's all you need is a hell of a war between a couple of guys. You're going to have that world title match between Moxley and Jericho. You're going to have most likely Page and Omega defending against the Young Bucks.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that too.
And then whatever
Rio and Britt.
Yeah, Rio and
unfortunately.
Britt, and or maybe it'll be Rio and what's her nuts. Nyla Rose.
The hot.
But then I'm sure we'll get something with Pac as well. So I mean,
and we'll probably end up having Janela versus Sabian too on that. Maybe a 3-way with with Joey Janela involved. Or I'm sorry, Janela and Sabian maybe. Yeah, probably Janela and Sabian. Darby Allin will be on there somehow.
Right. So I think that's going to be a great show. But whether it can challenge New Japan for match quality, who knows?
It's hard to say. I mean, it really is. There's so many top flight wrestlers, and it seems like everything they do is match of the year quality. Almost every singles match I've seen has been match of the year quality. And
remember next weekend we have coming up their big show for February, which is New Beginning in Osaka, and 2 of the big matches on there are actually 3 big matches. There's Moxley defending his U.S. title against Minoru Suzuki. There is the world title match between Naito, world and Intercontinental title match between Naito and your boy Kenta, and then you have also Jay White against Sanada.
God, just unbelievably great matches.
Yes.
And absolutely. Then God winning the tag belts back, kind of disheartening.
You had to bring that
What do you
up.
think? What do you think about Lij? They've only got 2 titles left to go before that stable has them all. Do you think they give them the tag belts, the heavyweight and the junior tag belts, and just give all the gold to Lij?
I didn't even realize that. You know what? You know what's most disheartening though um, about God winning the tag belts back is that we looked like we were primed to have a great tag division for the first time. You
Yep.
know, we saw Goto and Ishii. We saw Shingo and Evil. We saw, of course, Juice and Finley were the tag champions, and then we saw that new team formed between Tanahashi and Ibushi. And and I realized that yeah, Ibushi got sick with that um, something Weiss disease. I can't remember. It's something about like making him dizzy and things like that. But he's better now and on the right track. I don't know if that's why there was this quick title switch or what the deal is with that. But it looked like we were primed to have a strong tag division and that we were finally gonna get a bit of a break from God. But now again, even if one of these other teams wins those tag titles, it's going to be another match where God is involved in a tag title match. And I don't know, and it's been 2 years since that hasn't been the case.
Japan is not big on their face versus face, heel versus heel style matches. So having God win the titles if they're going to have Tanahashi and Kota challenge makes sense.
But it was.
It sucks, but it makes sense.
But that's not who agreed to the matches. It was it was.
No, I know.
It was Juice and Finley that agreed to accept the challenge of Tanahashi and Ibushi.
And had Kota not gotten sick, I think that's what would have happened. It's just that he got sick, so they pulled an audible and gave it back to God.
Which is very cry-worthy.
Oh, I'm not going to lie. I'm sick of God being the heavyweight title holders. But I would love to see maybe Evil Sonata team up again and have Takahashi and Bushi go after the junior and just have all the gold in Lij. I don't think we've seen a stable hold all the gold since DX did it.
Yeah, we don't need that to happen.
I would love it. I want to see it. I want to see more than Tetsuo and Shingo 2 belts.
The other thing is that this is the third straight year now where God has lost the tag titles at Wrestle Kingdom to the World Tag League winners, and then they won the title back on either the first or second title defense of the tag champions.
No, Sonata and Evil, their first run held at 6 months.
But it was But remember, Evil was hurt for like 2 or 3 months of that.
Oh, possibly. I guess I don't remember that. I just know that they lost it at Dominion, granted back to God, but
Which was exactly my point. They lost it back to God in their second defense.
yeah, all right, makes sense. Still disheartening. I'm not gonna lie, it sucks.
The other thing we wanted to talk about, and Jeff touched on it briefly, was not my dog's barking.
They're probably more entertaining.
But was Bully Ray's comment this week, and I think some of the stuff we talked about tonight actually kind of leads into that. But Bully Ray's comment on his show Busted Open that professional wrestling still needs the heel versus face dynamic, and my position and Jeff's position has been basically that no, we don't need heels and faces. We need antagonists and protagonists, and anybody who is a real life, true to themselves character should be able to fill either of those roles at basically any time. And I think some of the stuff that we saw this weekend, it was great. In a sense, great character work. Like I'm not a big fan of Tai Chi, and I didn't like the way that match played out. I made that clear earlier. But Taichi could still be considered to be a compelling character for those who are willing to buy into his story, who are fans of Taichi, because here's a guy who, yeah, he's a bad guy from my perspective. He's a bad guy from a lot of people's perspective, but he also kind of had a point where he was the one that was overlooked when he was the one that when he had beaten Okada right before they both went on excursion. And yet when they come back and he was the one that was supposed to have the higher prospects, Okada's the one that wins the title. Okada's the one that goes on to superstardom, and so now he wants his revenge because he feels like his career was robbed from him. On the other hand, we have two other guys that are flip sides of the same coin in ZSJ and Will Ospreay. You know, they're both fantastic wrestlers. They're both fantastic British wrestlers. Ospreay is a phenomenal aerial performer who has learned to adapt his style to the ground. ZSJ is...
I hate you.
is a wonderful submission performer who also is a great technical wrestler and really knows how to, you know, put things together to make his opponent stretched out in fantastic ways. And both guys are obsessed with being the British heavyweight champion. The difference being that while ZSJ has become almost synonymous with that title, Zack Sabre Jr. has been the greatest British heavyweight champion of all time. Will Ospreay has yet to even get a taste of what it's like to be that champion. And I think that, you know, those stories that we saw play out is like, yeah, ZSJ is a jerk. ZSJ is a bit of an asshole. But he also has that confidence because he has been that guy, and you know, he's easy to root for in that sense because, you know, he's a winner and he goes out there and he performs every time out. And I don't think there's anything, and I don't think that him being a out and out heel would have made any difference in that match. It's still simply two guys going out there kicking each other's butts, and ZSJ stealing victory from the jaws of defeat, and Ospreay filing yet again to his nemesis.
The thing I like about ZSJ's performance too is he showed some of that, not necessarily high flying, but his athleticism and speed, which is not something that's been really commonplace with a ZSJ match. But against Ospreay, he stepped it up and showed that part of his game, which made the match even better.
Yeah, and those brutal kicks he was doing to Ospreay too were just like, Ospreay could not avoid those PKs.
No, he couldn't, and they look brutal.
Yeah, they did. Almost as brutal as the word ZSJ is to your sense.
Oh, I hate that. No, I mean, Bully Ray, I'll give him credit. He is one of the most brilliant wrestling minds ever. He's had two phenomenal heel runs. His run as the leader of Aces and Eights in that TNA heavyweight champion was one of the best heel runs of the past decade. And then he had that great run in Ring of Honor where he was. I didn't like seeing him in the ring, but his mic work was beyond amazing. Everything he did was fantastic. He was very good. So, you know, you get a guy that's that respected, a guy with that brilliant of a mind, to say something like that almost hurts because it seems more like he's living in 1999 than the modern day world. The modern day world, we don't care about who's a dastardly. We don't. It's not like it was in the 70s and 80s where we bought into the characters who were evil as actually being evil. Now we know their backstories, and seeing them badmouth the other guy's mom or hit on their wife, that stuff just isn't as believable as it would have been in 1995. So we don't need that horrible heel. a tweener can come out and do the same stuff. He can play the protagonist. They can have a blood feud and attack each other in the back, and let the fans decide who they want to cheer for. And there's been so many anti-heroes throughout history that have been able to pull that off. Both The Rock and Steve Austin, they weren't faces, they weren't heels, they were anti-heroes. That's what made them so popular, was once they became that anti-hero type character. That's what DX was. DX they weren't a face faction, they were heels through and through. But once they started getting cheered, they maybe eased up a little bit on their heel tactics, but they were still dirtbags. LIJ is a perfect example of that now. These guys are not good guys, but they're cheered. They're the anti-heroes. They're the ones that aren't the faces that is Chaos. They're not the heels like Bullet Club. They're the guys that are in between. And they can go against anybody. And that's what this world, and here I'm saying that when two of my favorite characters are just complete douchebags in Jay White and Sami Callihan. But I don't know if Jay White's character would work as a tweener. I think he's talented enough to pull it off, but I just don't think that this world needs to live by the heel and face persona that it has for the last 30 years.
Yeah, saying that guys that you love are great at being heels doesn't take anything away from the fact that we don't believe that wrestling necessarily needs faces and heels. There's
No.
two different arguments. And it's not just professional wrestling either. It's other. We've become more the sophisticated fan of a drama or a comedy, for that matter, or any other kind of entertainment, can look at something and appreciate the character and appreciate complex storytelling and being able to decide for yourself who you want to cheer for. And we talked about this on our Jessica Jones series. How by the end of that season, we could easily make an argument that the big bad of the entire season was actually Jessica Jones.
Well, if you look at just
go ahead.
If you look at just television these days, what's most popular? What's most popular are shows where the bad guy is the hero of the show and what we're watching. It kind of started with The Sopranos, and then we had Breaking Bad, and we had I can't, what's that motorcycle show that was Sons of Anarchy, yeah, and so many others. Look at, now vampires are the good guys.
That's going to say you and I love the originals. That was all about vile vampires.
And we had that with Angel. We had that with, Vampire Diaries and the originals. You've got so many of these True Blood's another one that glorified vampires and made them the heroes. There's so many other shows out there where what has typically been a villain throughout decades and decades are now who we cheer for.
And there's the show that I love that I told you about today that you never, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but I know you've never seen it before, called Billions, where your main characters are a billionaire stock investor, killing it on in the stocks, and the U.S. District Attorney who's trying to go after him, the U.S. District Attorney's wife, and they participate in sadomasochism together. And then eventually the father of the U.S. District Attorney, his boss, the Secretary of the Treasury, and then his underlings, like it all comes together where there's no good guy and there's no bad guy, even though they work for the government and they're trying to take down this stock guy. They're doing it through underhanded means, and there's nobody you really should root for, so the show kind of lays out the story. It's like, okay, so are you going to root for one of these guys or not? But it still keeps you interested enough to keep watching it, whether or not you have a rooting interest or not. So
right. So I just think that it's a little bit antiquated to say that wrestling has to continue having heels and faces to get over when some of the biggest shows on television were rooting for bad guys for what has typically been bad guys, and now they're the heroes. And like I said, I mean, the performances by Lij alone proves that you don't need to be a heel or a face.
And
It just.
and here's the other thing: how many faces or heels are there on NXT right now?
None. And it's the same thing with if you look at Okada's matches over the last 6 months to a year, has he played either a heel or a face in any of them?
No, he's just Okada.
Yeah, against Jay White, he was maybe favoring a little more towards the face side against, literally everybody else, he's just kind of, against Omega, he was more of the heel. But against everyone else, he's just kind of Okada. He's not a heel or a face.
Yeah.
And that's the same way Naito's been for the last few years. It's the same way Evil and Sonata have been. That's the same way Takahashi has been. It's just not necessary in this world. Now, granted, there are some people who are much better as heels, like Jay White and Callahan. There's some people that are much better as faces. And MJF, there are people that are much better as faces, like Cody and Daniel Bryan. But ultimately,
Darby
the
Allin.
tweeners, Darby Allin, I don't know what he is. I look at him more as an anti-hero. I don't see him as being the rule breaker, but I can see him being one if he needs to be.
Okay, makes sense.
And having it be believable. He just hasn't needed to be that yet.
Could you tell the complex story they're telling with Hangman Page right now if you were strictly in a world of heels and faces?
Absolutely not. And that was the next guy I was going to say. Both, we've got Omega, who's clearly playing the face right now, but in his feud against Moxley, he had moments of heel tendencies where he was kind of more of a tweener than a face. The Bucks have been kind of back and forth on whether they're a heel or a face, depending on who they're up against. Against Lucha Brothers, they were clearly the faces. Against SCU and against Omega and Page, they've kind of had some heel tactics.
Oh, come on. SCU are the biggest heel tag team on the planet right now.
Just because you hate them doesn't mean they're heels.
They are to me, damn it.
And that's just the way you look at it. That's the way it should be. You should be allowed to like who you want, not just because they're telling you these are the good guys. And that's why we've been saying this for years. I think the time of heel and faces, while it still has a place at times for certain characters, should not be the go-to anymore. It just shouldn't.
No, I mean the last time that I can really remember there being a heel-face dynamic in NXT, because I mentioned them, was when it was Gargano versus Ciampa.
Which is still one of the greatest feuds of all time.
Yeah, I mean, and you could argue Shayna Baszler versus Rhea Ripley, but if you look at that match, the crowd was torn between who they wanted to cheer for.
But if you also look at the Ciampa Gargano storyline and actually look at it, yes, Gargano was playing the babyface, Ciampa clearly the heel, but during their matches, during their promos, during every part of it, those two were almost inseparable on what they were, whether they were heel or face. Because Gargano came out there and said some things that just should not have been said by a face. And Ciampa had his moments where the crowd was actually getting behind him because of his ability.
I suppose that's true. And then eventually Johnny Gargano got driven crazy to the point where he became a heel briefly. So.
And then he ended up turning on Ciampa, right before Ciampa got injured. So I mean, there was a whole lot of dynamic to that. It wasn't a strictly heel versus face dynamic. It was a feud of the century, probably one of the greatest feuds of all time. But I wouldn't necessarily say. I mean, Ciampa was pegged as the heel, Gargano was pegged as the babyface. But ultimately, when you take a look at that feud and the matches and the promos and the way the whole thing played out, those were just two guys who hated each other. Neither one of them was a good guy. Neither one of them was a bad guy. They just did not like each other.
That is correct. And speaking of, and I do want to say that there was one more thing that I felt was stupid that was said on this Busted Open episode I listened to, which was that Adam Cole was the wrestler of the year in 2019.
I think he deserved a top 10 spot, but I don't think he was wrestler of the year. Absolutely not. There's no way you can say that even looking at the WWE roster that he was the wrestler of the year.
No. And that's how I feel too. And I feel like I feel like Dave LaGreca saying that was a lot of what do you call that? A recency bias, where he had that great run in November, and he had that great run towards the end of the year where you could, if you don't think about what happened earlier in the year, then maybe you could have that opinion. But I don't. But part of mine is I didn't love his matches with Gargano the way that you loved I loved the second one. I think is the one I loved, right? Yeah, I loved the second one, but I didn't.
I loved all three of them.
No, you did not love the Hell in a Cell, or that 3 Stages of Hell.
Oh, the 3 Stages of Hell. No, you're right. I didn't love that, but the first two matches I absolutely loved.
LaGreca did. So.
And I would not have put either one of those two in my top 10 for last year. I mean, starting out, I thought Gargano had a run at it, but towards the end of the year, he really faltered. And I think Cole, while he was probably, if I sat down and legitimately looked at it, I think I could have made a case for him being top 10, but I don't even think he was the best wrestler. Not even WWE. I don't even think he was the best wrestler in NXT. That goes Shayna Baszler. Nobody had a better year in NXT than Shayna Baszler did last year, as far as match performances, as far as character development, as far as just everything. That Shayna Baszler had the best year out of the bunch last year.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I would not I would have argued with you to the ends of the earth if you had said something like that to me 2 years ago. But now I'm starting to fall in line with other people where I don't know that we really want to separate top guy versus top woman anymore. Shayna Baszler, was definitely in my top 5 professional wrestlers on the planet last year, and definitely the top in anything I saw in WWE.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that too. I mean, I didn't watch enough WWE to really say. I know Daniel Bryan had a hell of a run. I know AJ is just always in that, even at his age, is still just always in that dialogue.
Rollins
I know Seth.
Year too, so.
No, Rollins had a down year last year. It was the year before he was amazing. Okay. Yeah, last year he really had a down year. But 2018, he was definitely in that top 10. In fact, I even think I had him in my top 10.
Wait, was it 2018 where he had that great one running as Intercontinental Champion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last year he was Universal Champion and really had some duds, and he opened his mouth too much on social media, and just he had issues last year.
Okay.
Remember last year was when he said that he was that his checkbook was better than Will Ospreay's, so he was a better wrestler because of it.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. So Rollins did not have a good year last year, but I mean, he's also in the conversation. Yeah, that's a good point. Fucking Becky Lynch. I swear to God.
Now you're the one that said that. I didn't say that the entire show, and now you said it right at the end.
Yeah, I slipped up a few other times too, but I swear to you, and I think I said it when we were watching it, when she entered that Royal Rumble, or when she entered that arena, I swear to God, Becky Lynch has gotten hotter over the last couple of years. I don't know what it is, but regardless, anyway, so it's hard to. Yeah, I can't agree with that. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't agree with Adam Cole being best wrestler of the year. You want to say top 10? I'll give you that. I'll even argue that he's the top 10 and be able to prove it, but not wrestler of the year. Not when you got guys out there like Ospreay and Callahan and Jay White and people like that. It's not possible.
I could probably make an argument. There's 10 guys. I could probably make an argument. There's 10 guys in New Japan that had a better year than Adam Cole, but I'm not going to bother doing that. So.
No, because that's just too much work, and we're already out of time. So, guys,
Speaking
if you
of the tag team we talked about a little bit ago. So before we say "see you later" to these people, Jeff, tell them where they can listen to us at.
wow, I haven't heard an "see you later" in a long time.
That's
Well,
their finishing
except for
move.
that's their right. So I guess I did just hear that last week.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, if you're listening to us on Spreaker, we appreciate it. If you're listening to us on lordsofpainradio.net, also appreciate it. If you're on those sites, head over to YouTube. Listen to us on YouTube for this final closing seconds. Hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell. We do go live twice a week, and we do have an upcoming live exclusive YouTube special coming up next week as well. Patreon.com, that's where the money's made, because that's what keeps our...
I'm sorry, I didn't really want to interrupt you here, but am I misremembering? Are we not doing a live YouTube special Wednesday night, tomorrow night also?
We are. I said
Okay.
twice a week. Twice a week we do it live.
No, but I thought we were doing one for Eminem, YouTube exclusive.
Oh God, are we? we can.
Well, you mentioned the Mandalorian one, but I thought we had talked about we were going to do the new Eminem album as well. So
you are right. So I guess, hey guys, we're going to do a live YouTube special tomorrow night as well. But regardless, patreon.com, that's what helps us keep the door open, because you can donate and help us pay the bills, keep the door open, keep bringing you content just by subscribing to a couple of different tiers. One of the tiers is all of our archives, all the way back to our humble beginnings back in 2014. With Excuse the Aggravation was what we called that one, and then morphed it into another show called The Realest Guys on the Radio, and now into Kingdom of Honor. You can hear us all the way back to then. And we also have a tier that gives you exclusive content. We do exclusive content. In fact, we're doing one right after the show, an exclusive show for our Patreon subscribers, Ring of Honor 9th Anniversary show. We do all kinds of stuff on there. There's we called it Wrecked with Wrestlers, which was basically a legacy series where we took a look at one wrestler's career, picked some matches that we really loved out of it, and we got 4 or 5 under our belt before we got derailed by Shane Helms, and then started on an extreme tour of ECW's early days and looking at all their specials and pay-per-views, and that kind of got put on hold so we could talk a little bit about Jessica Jones and some other movies and things that are exclusive on YouTube or on Patreon as well. And tonight we're going to start running through Ring of Honor shows as well. So lots of exclusive content. The only place you can hear it is on patreon.com/Kingdom of Honor. From Patreon, you can get to our YouTube channel, which is us right here, and you can also get to my Twitter, which is at RegiCoop. His Twitter, it's at ZanmanLOP. We use hashtag DAD and hashtag KOH for everything.
And make sure you stay tuned to all the other LOP radio shows. Tomorrow, as Jeff said, we'll be going live with Dynamite After Dark, right after Dynamite goes off the air. We are your live reaction show here on LOP Radio and the LOP YouTube channel. And also tomorrow is Sports Entertainment is Dead. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 more weeks of that show before it goes off the air for good. On Thursday, we have MSLOP Radio Adventure. On Friday, no more Right Side of the Pond, but we do have NWA Power, the Legacy Series. And then Jeff and I will be back with you next Tuesday, again, we're talking about New Beginning in Osaka. So...
And that's whatever else Bully Ray says.
Well, I hadn't listened to Busted Open for like 2 months or 3 months, so I kind of wanted to tune in and see what he thought, and boy, am I glad I did.
Yeah, give us a half hour.
Anyway, that's all we've got. We'll try to do better next time. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
goodbye.
G1 Climax 27. Goodbye and good night.